don't know how to act. Yeah, I'm pointing out facts. If I point a finger, that's point of attack. Good point, who's next? Flag on the plate, now I'm causing them death. We bet on ourselves, so what you expect? A die-hard fan, never live with regret. Yes, sir. Go to my neck. Burgundy flex. Who wants the smoke? We bringing it home. Beat like gas. Look how we step. Who we got next? Step on the right, step on the left. Who do we rep? Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Left side. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? Watch the middle. Commanders. Where's my soldiers? High off the way that this sound, they turn up as soon as they feet hit the ground. I am not playing around. I hit them, I bet that they feeling me now.
Welcome, one and all across the nation and around the world. I welcome you all to the latest edition of the Commanders Gridiron Report. I am your host, Drew Willingham, and forgive me for the 45-minute delay. As you know, my famous term, dumpster pelican, I feel like one today. The change of the weather is here in the fall. However, I'm good to go to get this thing started. I debated back and forth, but I am here nonetheless to get this thing going. We got a couple comments to start us out. Let's go ahead and see what we got in here. Mick, my man, welcome to the show, brother. Glad to have you here on the Commanders Gridiron Report. And Ike is in the house. So Ike, behave, because Mick is here to police you and the comments. Mick is here, Ike. Make sure that you behave in the comments. And right here, you're right. They did just barely hang on. And I don't know about just barely hanging on, but we'll get to that here in just a few minutes. But, you know, without further delay, let's go ahead and take this into the first segment, that being the 1st and 10.
They are the Washington Commanders. New name, new marks, new uniform.
Soldiers, are we ready for Operation Burgundy?
And here with the 1st and 10, a look at the score for what we have for this Commanders matchup. And Mick was right last week. You know, he was saying on Total Football Talk, bing, a plug for my show that I have with Cole Johnson on Tuesdays. And we have a very special announcement tomorrow on our show tomorrow afternoon as well. But with this, the 1st and 10, the Commanders hang on for victory over the Atlanta Falcons. We've already got Ike in the comments talking smack, saying that, you know, the team barely hung on. And in some aspects, I can say that's true. But Desmond Ridder throwing 3 interceptions, that was the big key right here and why the Atlanta Falcons lost this game, which I will definitely touch up more on. But for Sam Howell to throw for 3 touchdowns and have no turnovers, it was definitely great play by the young man there, number 14. I almost said 4 because I was thinking about Taylor Heinicke for a second. It was nice at the end of the game seeing the two of them swapping jerseys, you know, the ceremonious, you know, swapping of the jerseys and stuff. Sam Howell wouldn't have had his opportunity last year in week 18 against the Cowboys had not been for Taylor Heinicke sitting the game and giving the opportunity to Sam Howell. And even though Heinicke didn't have the opportunity to play yesterday as he is the backup quarterback for the Falcons, it was kind of like a full circle moment. The two of them getting up after the game, swapping of the jerseys, you know, posing for a picture and being excited as Taylor Heinicke is to see what Sam Howell is doing for the Commanders. Now, 3-3, the 3 losses haven't been pretty for the Commanders, but again, Sam Howell wouldn't have his opportunity if it wasn't for Taylor Heinicke, and for having those two together swapping the jerseys at the end of the game yesterday was definitely a pretty cool moment. So, you know, the 1st and 10, just basically recapping the score here, 24-16. Let's go ahead and take this into our next segment here in just a second where we got one more comment. Mick says he shared the show. Well, thanks, bro. I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully we can get some more eyes in on here, but I started a little bit late, so if we don't have a huge viewing while we're live today, I won't be upset. A lot of the views come as it's syndicated, but I'll take a second to even talk about that, you know, before I go to the next segment. So Toba Media definitely been growing over the summer. There's been one wild year. You know, today marks 6 months since that event took place. Mick, you and I know about that, that I've had to overcome. I don't want to go into too much detail while I'm on this show, but, you know, it's a very, very proud day for myself. Kind of an emotional day. It's kind of weird that like the not the flu, but like the allergies and the weather change stuff's kind of affected me on this particular day. but to be able to celebrate it and to be able to still be breathing for this moment is really cool. So as we are here for episode 7 of the Commanders Gridiron Report, with that being said, we've got the next segment coming up, and that is the Burgundy Flex Review.
Go to my neck, Burgundy Flex. Who wants the smoke? We bringing it home. Be like that.
Here for the Burgundy Flex Review, a look at the highlights from this Week 6 contest. And that picture right there, courtesy of Bowie TV and Darrell Owens, who was at the game yesterday in Atlanta, covering it for this team right here in the Commanders. And, as we go into the Burgundy Flex Review, let's take a look at the stats that we got right here. Total yards, the Commanders have 193 to the Falcons 402. Yes, and the Falcons lost the game. When you see stats like this right here in comparison, 193 yards to 402, generally the team with 402 yards gets the win. But not in this case right here. As we keep going down the line, 121 passing yards to 296 by Desmond Ridder on the Falcons. Again, the passing yards are pretty low, but we'll touch back up on that here in a minute. When it comes to rushing yards, again, the Commanders have been struggling this year when it comes to the running game. 72 yards in rushing yards in comparison to 106 lackluster yards by the Falcons. Not big running by either of these teams, which is why they've both had their struggles so far this year through 6 games. When we look at the offense, though, right here, I've got to take a look at what they've been able to accomplish in this past game. The things that they came back from in the previous week, losing from the Bears. You had like a 9 to 10 day break, after playing that Thursday night football game and getting embarrassed, an absolute mollywop by the Bears, in my opinion. But the offense right here gets ready to go, as when it comes to Sam Howell and his passing as a result of that offense, was able to throw for 3 touchdowns. 14 to 23 for the attempts, not bad at all, but 151 passing yards. That's pretty low in comparison to, I believe, the week before I was talking about he had 388 passing yards. That's a pretty big dip, and especially playing an Atlanta Falcons defense that's not a stellar defense, that's not known for completely stopping the other offense. What's really affecting Sam Howell and why he's having up and down games as far as the consistency of his passing yards. We know he's got an arm. We know he's accurate. The problem is the offensive line is not giving him enough time to process what's going on around him. I mean, when you look at him, he is dancing around in that pocket. The man's taken the most amount of sacks as a quarterback this year and is on pace to not only meet the mark met by David Carr back in 2005 as far as the most amount of sacks taken by a quarterback, but actually exceeding that by going over that if this continues. They definitely have to address the needs on this offensive line during this offseason. I've preached this for so many years now. I mean, even while Trent Williams was there, about getting help around him, because we already knew what an all-pro offensive lineman he is, and now he's doing those great things with the San Francisco 49ers, which, of course, they lost their game yesterday, and talking about that streak ended. We'll talk about that tomorrow on Total Football Talk. Bing! But right now, the Commanders, when it comes to this offensive line, they have to make adjustments there in order to get things going to protect Sam Howell if they want to keep his career going. Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. Mick throws a comment in here saying doing an awesome job. I greatly appreciate it. When it comes to this team right here in the offensive line, though, they are not doing an awesome job, though, Mick. And we have to give them that swift kick in the rear end in order to motivate them to trend back upward when it comes to that, because it's been quite some time since we've seen a great offensive line from this team. I can go back even 30 years when they were the last equinets of the Hogs, of that, famously known as the Redskins former line back in the day in the 90s. But we haven't seen anything that great in quite some time. We've had a player or two, but not a consistent line that's going to be, whether they're decent and as a whole they make a great unit or not. We need to get that team back up and running with that position, because you can have a Trent Dilfer quarterback, a game manager, okay, which is what Sam Howell looked like yesterday pretty much for the most part of the game. And that was, and the sad part was But it's probably one of the better games that offensive line has played in quite some time. I don't want to throw complete shade on them, but if they grow from this moment and the same unit they have now elevates themselves and gets better, then I'm all for it. Whether they get better as a unit on that offensive line or they have to bring in more pieces to replace the bad seeds, that they've got to do something to protect Sam Howell, because that's the only way they're going to get consistent play. The game manager stuff was great yesterday, but we like seeing the 300 and 350-yard passing games, and we're not going to see that if he still dances around and taking all those sacks, and he took a little bit of a beating yesterday. But Sam Howell in this game right here, you look at him right here, in this picture in particular, he has a decent amount of time. Right here, he's about to hand the ball off to Brian Robinson in the backfield, and here's another one that he had to dance outside the pocket in order to get that pass off and get the completion. In comparison to Atlanta's Desmond Ridder, who was 28 of 47, threw for 47, nearly 50 passing attempts in this game. And you look at what he did, 307 passing yards, which that's pretty good. 2 touchdowns, that's decent. But the 3 interceptions is what put him at Dumpster Pelican status of the week, as he has his first home loss of his career since college. He didn't even lose a college home game. And he hadn't lost a home game in Atlanta in the professional league in the NFL since he's been in there. But yesterday, he got that loss as the Washington Commanders came into town and took that victory over the Falcons. We look right here, as far as the rushing and the running game numbers right here. When it comes to this right here, Brian Robinson, 10 carries, 31 yards. That is absolutely terrible. We're averaging 3.1 yards per carry and no touchdowns. So we had no rushing touchdowns yesterday by this team, which I know passing touchdowns are great, but when your leading rusher is at 10 carries for 31 yards, that's absolutely terrible numbers right here. When you look at Chris Rodriguez Jr., 4 carries, 23 yards. Antonio Gibson, who used to be the feature back, at 3 carries for 15 yards. Sam Howell, 4 carries for 3 yards. And Curtis Samuel, 1 carry for 0. You got to look back, especially at Antonio Gibson. I just said it. He was the feature back at one point for this team before they even got Brian Robinson last year. I wouldn't say many years. It's only been a few years, but a few years ago comes in. Former wide receiver, from where he had come up. I believe he came from Liberty, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, if Antonio Gibson did not come from Liberty, but for some reason, that's what I'm thinking right now. And then he switched over to running back. Hasn't had that great of success. As a receiving back, definitely does great things for the most part, but as a running back, I don't have high hopes for him in progressing as he gets older. Right here, as we look at Brian Robinson in those 10 carries for 31 yards. Here's a picture by Darrell Owens right here. 2 picture angles right here of Brian Robinson running. And it's not like he's doing a horrible job. I just feel like he's not getting the holes. Like the line is not creating the gaps that he needs to get in between and take off for a great run. And, again, a lot of these teams that they're playing that he's having the low numbers aren't known statistically for being a great top 5 or top 10 defense. So I blame this more on the offensive line than I do on the production of the running backs. Antonio Gibson, maybe not, because we've seen a decline in his numbers over the past couple of years. But right here, when it comes to Brian Robinson, this right here, he's got to pick this up, and the line needs to do better protection and giving gaps in order for him to gain more yards throughout. When it looks at Atlanta's rushing, though, a little bit better numbers as far as Algier having 13 carries, 51 yards, averaging almost 4 yards per carry, but no touchdowns. Bijan Robinson, who's been coming up over the past, I'd say year or so, he's 13 carries for 37 yards, averaging nearly 3 yards per carry. And, again, the defense on the Washington side was definitely a lot more impactful than what the Falcons were, in my opinion. So when it comes to this right here, these numbers reflect playing an actual decent defense, not their offensive line, from what I was seeing for the Falcons. The Falcons' offensive side aren't bad at all. I mean, overall, but they need a better quarterback. Desmond Ridder is not it, in my opinion. And the Falcons are definitely shooting themselves in the foot if they do not take him out at some point and Taylor Heineke gets in. And I think that they might already be at that threshold of time when, not just because he got his first home loss, but the 3 interceptions that he threw yesterday, along with the way that he threw them, the type of reads that he had, nobody else would have put the ball in those spots that he was putting them in. He was forcing them in there, and someone who's a second-year quarterback who had time to learn behind someone who, of course, like Marcus Mariota, and watching the mistakes that he made that resulted in the switch for Ridder to get in last year to the point that he's a starting quarterback now. I feel like he should have learned that enough within the past year and a half of those mistakes that were made by another quarterback that he got to see on the bench. When it comes to the receiving game, things change up a little bit right here. Terry McLaurin was a little bit more productive overall than the running backs were, as he had 6 receptions for 81 yards, averaging 13.5 yards per reception. Terry McLaurin still a beast right there. Of course, we like to see a 100-yard receiving game, but he was only 19 yards away from achieving that. Didn't have any touchdowns, not that big a deal, but you still made a spark on that offense from what I would say for Terry McLaurin. Curtis Samuel right here, 4 receptions, 42 yards, and a touchdown as well. Brian Robinson Jr., 2 receptions, 25 yards, and a touchdown. Logan Thomas, only 1 reception of 2 yards. And Antonio Gibson, I was talking all that about him being a great receiving running back. He only had 1 reception for 1 yard, but it was for a touchdown to help give that team the lead earlier in the game. So when it comes to receptions, the score, Scary Terry right here leads the pack right there with the amount of receptions and yard production in the game. When it comes to Curtis Samuel right here, we have his touchdown that he had for his reception touchdown right here. Is he only accumulated for 42 yards, but he did get a touchdown. And this is the touchdown celebration that we have from the start here from Darrell Owens of Bowie TV. We've got, the dance right there and another angle right here, as well as one final shot of them going away from the end zone. And right here, Atlanta's receiving, though. Drake London, 9 receptions, 125 yards, averaging nearly 14 yards per reception, but he didn't have any touchdowns. Not that big a deal. He still was a big part of production, but they only got 16 total points off of the amount of production for this team, which is definitely not great if you were the Atlanta Falcons right here. Got Bijan Robinson, 5 receptions for 43 yards. So between his numbers that he had as running as well as receiving, definitely accumulated almost over 100 yards in production. So definitely was a big part of those 16 points as well. Kyle Pitts, 4 receptions for 43 yards and a touchdown, averaging nearly 11 yards per reception, as well as Mac Hollins, 3 receptions for 41 yards, round out the leaders for the receivers of the Atlanta Falcons right here. When it comes to the Washington Commanders defense, Kendall Fuller, 9 tackles and 1 interception, probably the biggest spark of this team outside of Cody Barton, who had 5 tackles, 9 assists, and it definitely seemed like he was all over the field when it came as far as the defensive side of the field. Cameron Curl, 8 tackles, 3 assists, and you look at Jonathan Allen, who had 5 tackles and an assist, with Benjamin St. Justy right here. And I got to go to that picture that Darrell has, which I'm going to have to reload that unit real quick. But we got the Washington defense right here. And you look at what type of impact this team made. Sam Howell in the 3 touchdowns was definitely big, right? But this defense definitely stepped up, in my opinion, over the course of this game, because if it wasn't for what this defense did in this game, we would definitely not have seen the outcome that we saw at the end of the game with them winning by 8 points. I mean, this team definitely stepped it up. And you look at St. Justy's interception, I said here. I actually had to get to reload because thank you, StreamYard, for kicking it off, but we'll go back. Right here, the interception that he had right there in the end zone as the Atlanta Falcons were trying to come back and tie it up, puts the icing on the cake for this team in the defense right here. And we look at Cody Barton, as I was talking about him and Cameron Curl earlier, when it goes to this defensive statistic board right here. But those are the top 3 that you have there: Kendall Fuller, Cameron Curl, and Cody Barton. But St. Justy's interception to seal the deal at the end was definitely a huge impact. when you look at the defense of the Falcons, they were kind of playing a little bit like dumpster Pelicans, just a little bit. But we could argue that here in a minute. When it comes to this, 6 tackles, 2 assists. That's your leader right there. I mean, that's decent. That's average. But as we go down the list, the numbers get worse. 4 tackles for the second person there, and 3 tackles with 2 assists. And the numbers just keep dropping for this Atlanta team right here. Looking at this Atlanta team, the numbers are just not that impressive. Nobody is getting excited about these Atlanta numbers right here, which is why you lost the game. Let's go to the Washington special teams right here. And this one was awesome to see. And for those of you who have been fans of the Commanders for quite some time, brought somebody back not too long ago. Somebody who was with the team when it was formerly known as the REDSKINS, the logo that is part of the half sleeve on my arm. We'll talk about that another day, as I've talked about it enough. And you have the license plate with the nickname behind my head. But anyways, back to the special teams. Antonio Gibson, 1 kick return for 13 yards. Not too shabby. At least he didn't have to take a knee right away. At least he got 13 yards. Give my man some credit. When it comes to Jamison Crowder, though, that's the person who I was just talking about. 1 punt return for 61 yards. Again, Jamison Crowder, 1 punt return for 61 yards. This guy's been in the league for a while. Bounced around after he left the formerly known as the REDSKINS. Almost took that punt return to the house. Was inside the 10-yard line when he was tackled, and definitely helped put one of those 3 touchdowns that Sam Howell had tossed around on the board. So Jamison Crowder, probably that punt return, shifted the tide of the game. They may not have won, and they may not have beaten the Falcons had Jamison Crowder not had that 61-yard punt return right here. So as we talk about special teams, they are just as important as offense and defense, especially when you have Old Man River, as I feel like he should be dubbed as, Jamison Crowder, because he's been in the league as long as he has, taking it almost to the house for 61 yards for the touchdown inside the 10-yard line. So, again, not a touchdown. Don't take me as saying it wrong. He almost got it in. And we have a picture of that right here. This is the punt return that Jamison Crowder had. Darrell Owens got a great picture of this unit right here as far as the blocking and Jamison Crowder shifting and taking this unit back as he did and almost for a touchdown. That would have been the only thing that would have made this better, but it was still one great moment and helping contribute towards the victory. When we look at Atlanta special teams, there's not really much to get excited about when you compare that between this of the Commanders. Now, Joey Sly only had 1 field goal as a field goal kicker for 37 yards, but the one thing that I didn't really touch up on much, that I'm going to touch up on now before we even get to our next segment, is look at the punting. Tress Way had 6 punts, and I usually don't get excited about punts this often, but he had 260 yards total for those amount of punts for 43-yard average, over 40 yards in average, and 3 of those 6 were inside the 20. That is Pro Bowl punter-esque numbers. Even if you got 1 punt off per game, but you were still averaging over 40, nearly 50 yards per punt, that's one great leg. And especially when you get them inside the 20 and pinning them back there, that's only helping your defense out, stopping that offense on the other side of the team. Now, right here, we'll go back to Atlanta special teams. Again, nothing to get that excited about, as Mike Hughes only had 3 punt returns for 11 yards, averaging 3.7 yards per punt return. And Mr. Koo of the kicking team for the Atlanta Falcons only had 1 field goal attempt for 47 yards, converting on 4 points for the team. And their punter, again, he had 2 of those punts inside 2 of his 3 punts inside the 20-yard line. So that's some great punting right there, too, for 2 out of your 3 attempts to be inside the 20. I would say that's pretty respectable numbers as well. So if I'm going to get excited about my punter, I got to get excited about theirs. We got to look at the scoring summary here for a second. As the game started off in the first quarter with a field goal, followed by a touchdown, as the Falcons will be up 7-3. When we got to the second quarter, the Falcons still led the beginning of that quarter, 7-3. And then the Commanders took a touchdown with the 1-yard touchdown pass from Sam Howell to Antonio Gibson to take the lead of 10-7. And from that point forward, the Commanders didn't look back, as the next score would be by the Commanders, as Curtis Samuel would have that 7-yard TD reception from Sam Howell to take a 17-7 game, followed by a field goal by the Falcons, as we were just talking about earlier with Mr. Koo, which would bring them back within a 1-touchdown game, a 1-possession game pretty much. Then we would go into halftime. Coming back from halftime, the Commanders would score about midway through almost, as Brian Robinson would have a 24-yard pass reception from Sam Howell to take the lead at 24-10. That would round out what the Commanders would score, as they couldn't get another conversion in the fourth quarter. The Falcons would, though, as Jonnu Smith would take a 2-yard pass reception from Desmond Ridder, but they would fail in the 2-point conversion when they should have taken the field goal attempt. And that was something that Arthur Smith was getting some heat for during the game, as, at that point, you're down 8. What's the point of going for 2 right now? Because you still have to get the ball in the end zone again. So you might as well kick the field goal and be down by a flat 7 points. And then if you score again, you can either tie it or you can go for 2 there. For Arthur Smith to do that in the fourth quarter was absolutely dumb. Just as dumb as what Desmond Ridder was doing when he was throwing 2 interceptions in that game. We'll look at the game leaders for a second before we go to our next segment. 14-23 for 151 yards goes Sam Howell, as Brian Robinson also has 10 carries for 31 yards, and Terry McLaurin, 6 receptions for 81 yards. But the most impactful part of this for the Washington Commanders game leaders is the fact that Sam Howell tossed for 3 touchdowns. Looking on the other side of this for the Falcons, Desmond Ridder, 28-47, 307 yards, 2 touchdowns, and those lonely 3 interceptions. And Tyler Algier, or Algier, however you want to say it, because different announcers say it different ways, 13 carries for 51 yards, no touchdowns, but that's what his conversions were for the running back side of the Falcons. And Drake London went off, 9 receptions, 125 yards, but could not get the ball in the end zone. But still, that 125 yards was a big impact for the Falcons team that helped carry them throughout their offensive progressions and production throughout the game. Just they needed better play out of their quarterback in order to get the win. But that didn't happen, and that's why we're celebrating a Commanders victory today, as they are now 3-3 as a result of what happened this past weekend. Guys, that does it for our Burgundy Flex review segment. We're going to go ahead and take this into one quick commercial break. And when we come back, we'll have the Soldiers of the Week segment, followed by another awesome surprise on this show. Stick around. I'll see you back here in about 90 seconds.
Everything Boston. I love you morons. New Kids on the Block, New Edition,
Dear whatever the law firm is. Sincerely, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. Go yourself again, Jason Whitlock.
Oh, yes. The tradition, the pageantry, the spectacle, the history, the slut. Wait. I gotta rep my brother's stuff right. All my DMV soldiers, stand up! And welcome to the Commanders Gridiron Report. You want your Commanders to be repped right? Well, D. Willie is your man. Commanders Gridiron Report. Every Monday at 3:05 p.m. Eastern, 2:05 p.m. Central. Exclusively on the Sertoba Media YouTube channel. Music by J.KUL.
Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Left side.
Sertoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
And welcome back to the Commanders Gridiron Report. I had to borrow the In or Out Sports Debate commercials for just this episode because I didn't get a chance to update the Commanders Gridiron Report commercial pack, as some of the commercials that were in that previous one that I've had for quite some time were a little outdated. So today you get the In or Out Sports Debate commercial packs, but we are back from that first commercial break. And now we have to take this into the next segment, which is the Soldiers of the Week.
Where my soldiers, right side, and Commanders. Where my soldiers, left side.
And here is the Soldiers of the Week graphic. And yes, I have a punter on here for this week. Soldiers of the Week. And when it comes to the punter, again, 6 punts, 260 yards, 3 of them inside the 20. I feel like that made a big impact on the game as far as pinpointing that offense back there inside the 20. 3 of those 6 punts definitely impacted the defense for the Washington Commanders to help stop this Falcons team and get those 3 interceptions that they did, in my opinion. Our next one on the list, 14-23 for 151 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, the 151 yards is something to be impressed about, but the 3 touchdowns is with no turnovers at all. So when I think about that, I have to put Sam Howell on this list. The game managing style that he had for this game speaks volumes, and I have to give it to the kid for this one. Very young and doing what he's doing, impressive. 3-3, overall, many fans don't get that excited about a 3-3. But for me, to see the development of him as a quarterback and the things, I see the growth right there, and I see the potential. If this kid can be the franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years and not go anywhere and be all in and have, hopefully at some point, whether it's Eric B or somebody else, have an actual head coach that is all in too, in a similar style like Andy Reid is over in Kansas City and other coaches of the past as well. Once you get to a certain age like Ron Rivera and the things you've been through, you gotta realize it's time to move on. But we'll get to that here in a minute. But right now, when it comes to Sam Howell, if he can stick around for 10 to 15 years and continue to grow, sky's the limit. And that's why I have him on this right here as far as the second person on the Soldiers of the Week list. Kendall Fuller, 9 tackles and 1 interception. Him coming over from the Chiefs was definitely huge for this Commanders team. And it's definitely paying dividends, as it's not the first time we talked about Kendall Fuller being, part of the great athletes of the week. But for this week in particular, he definitely affected this team with that production right there of 9 tackles and 1 interception. That's why I got the punter, the quarterback, and Kendall Fuller of the defense back there in the backfield on this list right here for the Soldiers of the Week. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and take this into our next segment, that being the Showstopper.
I off the way that this sound, they turn up as soon as they feed the ground. I am not playing around. I hit them, I bet that they feeling me now.
And here with the Showstopper, we basically like to talk about the adjustments that the Commanders need to make from week 6. But before we do that, we got a few comments here that I want to acknowledge here in the live feed right here. Ike says, what about Riverboat Ron? Well, I was just talking about him a second ago, and that's when you had said that. So I will touch up on that here in a second, but I'll bring your question back up when I do that. He doesn't get any shade this game. Well, I did just throw him a little bit, but there's not so much I can throw him in this game, but I'll get back to that. We've got an ending segment, the final one that I'll talk more about that in. And yes, you just threw some laughing emojis because of me trying to push it back. Yes, they're Ike. So I appreciate your comments. But here with the Showstopper and the things that we got to talk about within the Showstopper right here, the adjustments the team needs to make. When it comes off a victory, it's tough, especially with the type of game management that Sam Howell was producing in this game. I would say, the offensive line still needs to grow, whether it's still with the same unit or they bring in more people during the offseason. But if they want to have a chance of making the playoffs this year, the team needs to continue to grow and elevate their play each and every week. I don't see it happening, though. I'm very worried about that. The running game, the biggest part of the offense besides the line that needs to make improvements here. But I don't know how else to explain you doing that unless you improve the offensive line production and the protection that your running backs are getting. If you're not protecting for your quarterback or running back, whoever's in the backfield, fullback, even if you decide to bring that out of retirement, that position, but whoever's in the backfield, if you're not protecting for them and providing holes in the run through, there's not going to be much production at all. So that's the biggest adjustments I see as far as the offensive side. Defensively, Chase Young was very, very quiet yesterday. The adjustments for the defense side, they need to get Chase Young more active, or they might have to think about trading him during this offseason because the amount of money they're spending on him, even though he is coming back from injury and, it may be a slow rebuild on that, I feel like I should still see more production out of him. So on the defensive side, I would say your adjustment for that would be still do what you're doing, but find a way to get Chase Young involved a little bit more. That would be my defensive adjustment for you. And for your offensive adjustment, your offensive line, protecting your backfield and your quarterback and getting your running backs more active, because 10 carries for 31 yards for your leading rusher is absolutely horrible. And we have talked over the past 7 episodes of this show that's come out since right when the season started, as we gave the week 1 preview in the first episode on to now in week 7 and for episode 7. When I look at all of the stuff that we've talked about throughout the entire lineage of this show, biggest thing I've talked about is this offensive line and the running back game, and they need to improve. We knew I had a feeling that we were going to get this type of production for Sam Howell, and he's living up to the hype, in my opinion. Okay, it's still early on. It's not like RG3 mania back in 2011, 2012. Well, 2012 was the year that he played and went off. 2011 was his college year that he went off and got drafted in 2012. So, yeah. But it's not like RG3 mania 11 years ago. It's not like that. But I do like what I'm seeing from Sam Howell. He came into the league in the NFL last year. So 10 years after RG3 came in, we get Sam Howell. And if they do this the right way, even if it's with or without Riverboat Ron, if they do it the right way, I feel like they're going to get some great results, and it's going to pay great dividends into the future for this team right here. And that's the adjustments that I feel like should be made from week 6 going into week 7. Guys, this is Showstopper segment. Let's go ahead and take another 90-second break right here and give you a little bit more things to check out as far as the products that we have on our collaborative networks between my own and Comey Media with Cole Johnson. We'll be right back in 90 seconds for the last 2 segments.
Football, and more football, you say? Well, tune in to Total Football Talk. Join your hosts, Drew Willingham.
You were playing like a dumpster Pelican quarterback.
And Cole Johnson.
It sets up for possible play action. Did you hear that, Dak Prescott?
As they take you through all the paces, both on the field and in the boardroom, of Total Football Talk. Every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Exclusively on the Surtoba Media and the Comey Media Incorporated YouTube channel. If you're looking for a sports program that gives you the flavor.
Washington Commanders? Really?
This whole thing stinks to high heaven.
That pulls no punches.
Thuggish act by a thuggish actor.
That gives you some humor.
Praise everything LeBron does and never criticize it.
If you want a show that gives you good times, then this is that show. BS3 Network proudly presents.
I am Cole Johnson, and welcome to
Cole Sports with a Z. Every Friday on Patreon and every Saturday on YouTube, Spreaker, and all other outlets.
And that's right. The In or Out Sports Debate has 100 plus mother-fathering episodes, but we are here for the Commanders Gridiron Report as we are borrowing the In or Out commercial packs today, as I have to update the Commanders ones. Just haven't had time. There's a lot going on out here in these streets that I cannot talk about here on the airwaves, but I'm still here, still breathing. Everything is okay. But we are here for episode 7 of the Commanders Gridiron Report. We've gone through 4 great segments so far, and we got 2 more left. Let's go ahead and take this into the opponent of the week to see who we got for week 7.
Look out We step. Who we got next? Step on the right, step on the left. Who do we rep?
And here for the opponent of the week, the Commanders are still on the road as they travel to New Jersey to take on the New York Giants, as the 1-5 lowly New York Giants are hosting the Washington Commanders, who are now 3-3. The New York Giants, New Jersey, but New York, New Jersey, New York Giants right here at 1-5 again are hosting the 3-3 Commanders. This team, the New York Giants, they are the dumpster Pelicans of the NFC East, as we saw it in last night's game. It was not pretty. They had a chance to come back. Daniel Jones, would he have brought him back? Would he not have brought him back? I don't know. I like some things I was seeing from Tyrod Taylor overall. But this team as a whole, I don't know if it's necessarily the coaching. I think it's more so the players and just the turmoil of this organization right here. It's not the same as what it once was. And the Commanders are a gritty team right now. I am not just saying this because of the half-sleeve tattoo that I got right here on my arm. I'm not saying this because of the historical stuff that's right up here inside this brain that I can just spit off like that because I know this team. I'm saying this because the production that we're getting out of the team overall. If this offensive line was solid, if they had a great offensive line, this Commanders team would be in first place in NFC East. And no, I'm not smoking anything. I'm just saying the offensive line is what's hurting the Commanders right now, along with a few little tweaks they need to make on defense. But their defense was what helped them win that game yesterday, as they got 3 interceptions off of Desmond Ridder. Even though Desmond Ridder kind of threw him right at him, it was the pressure of the defense that caused the 3 interceptions. So when I look at this offensive line stuff for the Commanders, I'm not really that worried about it when they're facing this team that's 1-5 at the Giants. Now, that does not mean you can take the team lightly, because it's a division game, and division rival games, they're always tight. Look at what happened with the Eagles game. But you were playing a very good team there. So again, it can kind of go both ways. But in the game of football, we talked about it before, many episodes before, not just on this show, but Total Football Talk, the In or Out Sports Debate, and what other 97 shows that I have for Sotoba Media. When it comes to everything else, we've talked that football, anything can happen on any given Sunday. The same thing that happened one week will not happen the next week, and vice versa, in multiple dimensions of the planets and different elements of time. It doesn't matter. It's different each time. But regardless if you're playing a game of Madden or not, that's just how the case is in real life or in video games. Maybe not so much in video games, because they can be rigged too. But when it comes to script of the NFL, my bad. No, I didn't mean to say script. But when it comes to the NFL right here, anything can happen on any given Sunday, Monday, or Thursday in the NFL. Or if a game gets rained out on Monday and they play on Tuesday, same deal. But when it comes to the New York Giants, I'm not expecting them to win this game. Just like in some cases last week, I was saying the Falcons could beat the Commanders. But I'm glad that I was wrong, and the Commanders stepped up, because I was thinking of what they did the week prior with the Bears. But I also did tell you that with a 9-day break, it could be enough time for them to rest up, because it's not a bye week. It's like a week and a half. It's like a half a bye. So you had time to rest up, but do a little bit more studying. Maybe Riverboat Ron get a little bit more motivation to talk to his team at halftime and not say, I'm just going to let the players handle it. No, you don't do that. You got to be the leader and go in there and say, you effed up, and you effed up, and you effed up, and we're going to do this, this, and this to fix it. And if not, I'm taking you out of the game and putting the next man in, next man up, go do your job and earn your job. That could possibly happen in this past week from what we saw with the 9-day break. I don't know, because I wasn't in the locker room at halftime, and they say what they say in the media. Sometimes, unless you are a fly on the wall or part of the team inside the locker room, you're not going to know exactly what is said in that moment unless you're there after the game, because media's in there after the game and stuff like that. But not all parts of media. Only team media, I think, is allowed in the locker room during the halftime. And then, of course, they control what they release to the public. So, and I don't blame you for that. I mean, that's just protecting yourselves in that case. So I'm not throwing shade at you. I'm just saying, whether it's me or anybody else who's working that event at that particular time, you're probably not going to get in there unless you're part of the team media to, find out what was said exactly. But Riverboat Ron shot himself in the foot not too long ago, not this week, but a couple weeks ago, and said that at halftime, when he was asked after halftime, said, well, what'd you say at halftime to help motivate this team and light a fire on them? Oh, I didn't say anything to him. I let the team handle it. He basically just walk away, go get a cup of coffee. What'd you do for 20 minutes during halftime? So in this game right here, if you come in there with that attitude like you did against the Chicago Bears, you're going to get embarrassed against the New York Giants, who is a team very similar to the Bears right now, as they are having their own struggles and their own tales of woe. So looking at this Giants team, I don't expect them again to get the victory here. Is the Giants winning? I expect the Commanders to win this game. For an actual prediction of the score and how this is going to happen in New Jersey, not New York, but a prediction, you're going to have to check out Total Football Talk tomorrow afternoon with Cole Johnson, and I will tell you, I'll at least tell you right here, I think the Commanders are going to win. I'm just not going to tell you about how much. And we got some comments here. Let's see who all is in the house. Melvin Turismo's here, says, hey, what's up? What's up, Melvin? Thanks for showing on up for episode 7 of the Commanders Gridiron Report. Great win for the Commies. And for that, you know what, Melvin? I think I'm going to give you a little bit of this. Now, if they lose this game, this upcoming week, I'm going to pull up MJ next week like this.
Stop it. Get some help.
Because you should not be losing to the New York Giants, as we are talking about that right here in this segment for the opponent of the week. And Mickey says, you will respect me next time, Drew. What are you talking about, Mick? Mick, what are you talking about? I have no idea what Mick is talking about. If you want to elaborate that in the comments, I will bring that back up for our final segment. But it's time for us to go to that final segment. As in this past one, we talked about the Commanders traveling to New Jersey to take on the New York Giants. And I feel like I almost said commies, because I saw that comment, but I feel like the Commanders are going to run away with the victory here. And run away, I mean, I'll explain it tomorrow on Total Football Talk, as I almost gave it away, but that's how I feel right here with this one. And we've gone through 5 great segments. We've only got one left. Let's go ahead and take it to that one and get on out of here, and that being the final drive.
We bet on ourselves, so what you expect? A diehard fan never live with regret. Yes, sir.
And here with the final drive, my closing thoughts heading in to week 7. First of all, this has been a fun show so far. 7 weeks, 7th episode. Almost didn't make it earlier because, again, I felt like a dumpster pelican when I got up earlier. Changed the weather and all that stuff, the stuff flying around in the air. Just not feeling the greatest today. But this is my only show today, my only live show. So I wanted to make sure I showed up for you guys. And, I also wanted to make sure that I'd be able to deliver. So that's why I pushed it back a little bit. 45-minute delay to make sure that I can make this happen for you. So thank you for those of you that have been in the comments, throughout the show, helping uplift me too, because, it's the comments, participation that bring me to another level. As I talk about the comments, here's another one. Mick says about the Commanders. Oh yeah. No, yeah. I show you respect now, Mick. I show you respect now. You definitely were right. I was wrong. Okay. But now, and I don't like saying they're going to lose, but I had to call like I thought it was going to go. But the things that I did touch up on that said, if they do this, this, and this, they will win the game. And they did those things, and that's why they won the game. So having that a good solid 9 days off in between definitely helped the production for this team. So, but yeah, Mick, I definitely see where you're coming from. And it was no disrespect intended, even though we're playing Wise El Jefe's team this week. And I did predict the Commanders, when they faced them, that they were going to be 1-5 at this point. And I actually, after the show ends, I'm actually going to jump in that group chat and say something. Be like, hey, Wise, just to give you an update. They're 1-5. They only got to lose 2 more games to go 1-7. Because if you look at episode 99 of the In or Out Sports Debate, Wise El Jefe was my guest panelist on for that show. And I told him. And at that time, I was joking with them, saying they're going to go 1-7. But at the end of the joking, I said I could potentially see them going 1-7 based on the schedule and the type of team that I'm just looking at. And I wasn't far off. I had the first 2 weeks wrong. The game that they won, I picked that wrong. It was the weeks were swapped in what I predicted in our Sports Debate. But other than that, everything else has been spot on. And if they lose to the Commanders this weekend, they only have to lose 1 more game to go 1-7. Then I hope they go on a winning streak, because I don't want to see anybody go like 1-16 out here. That'd be absolutely terrible. But Wise, I'm sorry, bro. They're 1-5. 2 games away from being right, saying 1-7. That's my final part of my final drive here for the Commanders Gridiron Report as we go into week 7, facing the New Jersey Giants. So, right here, this has been one great episode, guys. I've had a lot of fun with you in the comments. You know, Melvin, Mickey, Ike, those of you who have commented throughout this live show, thank you very much for tuning in. It means a lot to me to have the fans there and the support on all the different platforms that we're streaming to, not just YouTube, not just Facebook, but Twitter, Twitch. Well, not Twitter, X, the stupid name, X. Like, hey, man, you see that post on X? Like, I'm sorry. For my final drive, I'm going to talk about that for a second. X. That's the stupidest name, Elon Musk, as we are streaming here on X right now. I'm just getting all hyped about streaming my shows on X while I've got Facebook and Twitch. Instagram got shorts. But you got YouTube and LinkedIn and all the other stuff that you can stream to. But the other one that we got some real names out here in these streets or out here on these streams. Except for X, it's just a letter. I'm going to stream to a letter, and that letter is X. There's my comedy part for you guys today on my sports show for the final thoughts of this show. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been episode 7 of the Commanders Gridiron Report. We've only got one more mother, father, and thing left to do, and that's look at one badass outro. I am Drew Willingham of the Sartoba Media, A7BN Sports, Team MBS Media. Thank you as well for your collaboration in having this show on your networks and working with me as I work with you to help build your platforms in any way I possibly can as well. Sartoba Media, we have had one fun run since pretty much rejuvenating this brand in June. But again, here for episode 7, I am Drew Willingham as I rambled on for a second for my outro. This badass outro starts now. Everyone, stay safe out here in these streets.
Who do we wear? Commanders. Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Left side. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Watch the middle. Commanders. Where my soldiers? Now we step. Where my soldiers? Right side. Commanders. We wear. Where my soldiers? Left side. Now we step. Where my soldiers? Watch the middle. Command we where my soldiers.
Sartoba Media, where the struggle is real to be awesome.
You ain't got to go home, but you got to get on up out of here. I'll see you next week for episode 8, 3:05 p.m. Eastern on the same networks. Everybody stay safe out here in these streets.